Let's get together, talk about the movies that we saw this week. We'll have discussions, talk film news, we'll laugh a lot and act like geeks. Sometimes we'll have a guest or two, sometimes it's just the two of us. Let's crack some jokes and tell some folks to come along and hang with us. Mike and Mike go to the movies. Mike and Mike go to the movies. Yeah!
You have chosen wisely.
To protect the world from devastation.
To unite all peoples within our nation.
To denounce the evils of truth and love.
To extend our reach to the stars above.
Mike Smith.
Mike DeCriscio.
Mike and Mike go to the movies. Blast off at the speed of light.
Surrender now or prepare to fight.
Meow. That's right.
All right, that was certainly one way to kick off the first episode of our new podcast. Though if you followed us over from our old one, FilmBookCast, then that'll be nothing new. Welcome to Mike and Mike Go to the Movies. I'm Mike Smith. Joining me, as always, is a man who just wants to be the very best like no one ever was.
Mike DeCriscio.
How you doing today, Mike?
I'm doing good. Today's an exciting day.
It is an exciting day. The first episode of Mike and Mike Go to the Movies. Of course, we did 104 episodes of FilmBookCast over the course of 4 years, but now we're getting the opportunity to kind of revamp, do our own thing, and that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, more shitty intros coming at you.
Exactly. Now, joining us for this episode is our producer, which is a title he holds by the loosest possible definition of that term, Collin Stiles. Welcome to the first episode of Mike and Mike Go to the Movies, and thank you for your incredible Meowth impression, by the way.
Yeah, I really gave it my all there. Super excited to be on the first episode of this podcast.
I could tell. And Meowth is kind of the producer of Team Rocket in the same way that you are the producer of this podcast. Because
yeah, I contribute nothing.
Exactly. That's what I was getting at.
You're there for the pretty face. That's all.
Yeah.
Or you're not in the voice of logic.
Yeah, or that, too. I also appreciate that you actually put on the Meowth gold coin on your head to complete the ensemble.
It's an audio medium. They'll never know if we're lying.
Exactly. Now, all of the theme songs you'll hear this episode were created by Kyle Cullen, and our logo was designed by Jacob Honeycutt, or at Jacob Honey on Twitter. If you ever want to contact us and respond to something we did on the show, you can email us over at mikeandmikegotothemovies@gmail.com. Now, we've been doing a lot to make this a new version of the podcast feel like the old one, while also trying to push it in some new directions. So today, we're going to start with some discussions where we each discuss whatever piece of media we've been consuming lately, and then we'll move on into a retrospective of the Pokemon franchise, a look at the franchise's history and our own personal history with it. And then, naturally, we're going to move on from there into our featured review of Pokemon Detective Pikachu, a movie which has previously sent Mike into a state of existential panic.
It was a rough day when that trailer dropped.
Yes, so this should go well. Mike, now that you've actually seen Detective Pikachu, like, does life have more meaning now to you now? Or like...
it didn't make me break as hard as the trailer dropping did. It was the day Stan Lee died also that day.
Yeah.
So it was like a lot going on. And then we got like furry Pikachus, and I was like, oh my god, I can't handle this shit. But I was better this time. I did okay.
That's good. And Collin, we're having you on because you are a huge Pokemon fan, right?
Yeah, I've played probably every game, and I watched some amount of the movies and anime, but mostly the games.
Okay, so you're a big fan of the Pokemon games. But, I mean, and we'll talk a lot about Pokemon when we get to the retrospective, but it is something we all grew up with. So I think we all have some kind of connection to this franchise in one way or another. And so we'll get to that when we get to the retrospective. But first, we got to get into our discussions, starting right now.
Watch this. These are my discussions. Just when I thought I said all I could say, my buddy and I talk about movies we see. These are my discussions. There is so much to see, you and me. So we're gonna talk about movies for our discussions.
All right, and now it's time for the discussions here on Mike and Mike Go to the Movies, where we each kind of talk whatever we've been consuming lately. That can be any kind of media, movies, TV, music, whatever it is. So, Collin, you're the guest here. Let's start with you. What are your discussions for today?
All right, so as one of my jobs as a producer, I keep the minutes of the podcast. So we're gonna start with the minutes of the last episode of FilmBookCast.
That's episode 104, Avengers Endgame.
Yeah,
Sorry, it was 3.5 hours long.
Yeah, I didn't listen to it twice.
Oh my god!
You listened to it twice just for this joke? Is that what? Is that what
Yes.
we're hearing? Okay,
Yeah,
great.
and honestly, it's not even that long because it was a lot of effort. All right, so I broke it down into 3 parts: the retrospective, top 5s, and the actual Endgame review.
Sure.
All right, so my first note is, why did I choose the longest episode to actually keep the minutes? This was a terrible idea.
Yeah.
The one and only time.
For those of us like just joining in for the first episode who maybe haven't heard FilmBookCast, that was a recurring bit on FilmBookCast where we would always say, Collin, check the minutes, even when Collin was not on the episode. And now he's actually done it in real time, and I'm excited for this.
All right, so going through the retrospective portion, the notes I have here. Mike S. channeled his inner John Mulaney while questioning the plausibility of the Avengers movie, the original Avengers. It sounded straight out of a bit from a John Mulaney stand-up.
What did I say?
I don't remember exactly what you said, but your voice inflection was spot on Mulaney.
Okay, I'll take it.
It's around 13 minutes in. I actually noted that.
Timestamps.
You get timestamps for like the first 3 because I just gave up on that.
And then you're done.
Yeah. So continuing through the retrospective portion, fuck Ed Norton.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Fair. Yeah.
College age Mike did in fact love Disney. I was there. I can confirm that. And that has changed a lot.
I'm much more anti-capitalist now.
Right.
Yes.
We're opening up some dark doors out of Mike's past.
Yes.
Vin completely forgot what podcast he was on and tried to use sports references to explain how much money Endgame made.
Yes, multiple times he did.
Yes.
He actually told us he was watching a basketball game while he was on the podcast with us. He was
That's
on in the background. Yes.
Apparently, someone got hit in the balls during a Marvel movie. That's an excessive reaction to a Marvel film.
That was during Infinity War. Yep.
And my last note for the retrospective portion was, I thought I was listening to a podcast about Endgame, and I'm an hour in, and I've heard the Incredible Hulk mentioned more than Endgame. And that was very upsetting.
Yeah, we don't actually start talking about Endgame until like the hour 45 mark.
Moving on to the top 5 section. Y'all
there's
messed
more.
up. Oh yeah, y'all
Great.
messed up not having Spider-Man: Homecoming anywhere in your top 5s.
Vin had it as an honorary mention.
He did, but not on his top 5, so that messed up.
Okay.
And apparently, for you guys, a key to a good Marvel movie is just a good soundtrack or Captain America. Because your top 5s are all Captain America and Guardians.
Wow.
Yeah, that tracks.
Yep. And for Mike, who's notoriously bad at doing his homework, I'm pretty sure he just copied Vin's part of Vin's list to make it easier to finish.
I did notice there was a lot of overlap between Mike's
Yeah.
and Vin's list. Yes.
Yeah. And I only have 4 more notes about the actual Endgame review.
Okay.
Holy shit, this episode is long.
Yep.
Just wow, you know? Just wow.
I said that a lot. Okay,
Yeah,
listen.
You did.
And then my next note says Marvel, 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 because that's about all I heard after a while.
Which, to be fair, that's us in general.
Yeah.
That's the podcast.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And the last note was, guys, was there a Pegasus in this movie? I don't know if anyone did or not. So yeah, just want to make sure y'all knew about that.
All right. Well,
So those are your minutes. That pretty much summarizes that episode pretty succinctly.
yes, that was a thorough. Yeah, in case you missed our Avengers Endgame review, that was a pretty good summary of the entire thing. But I would encourage people to go back and listen to it because we did put a lot of work into that one.
Yeah, no, it's a great episode. I actually enjoyed listening to it twice.
We appreciate that. You got any other discussions besides us, Collin?
Yep.
No, go on.
Yeah, so last Thursday I went to go see the Book of Mormon at the Landmark Theater here in Syracuse. It was a play I've actually listened to the soundtrack to a bunch, but had never actually seen the play itself. So it was a really fun opportunity to go see it, actually see those songs performed in person, and it was hilarious. Like, I knew it was funny going in, but just start to finish, I was cracking up, especially at the the last song. One of the guys comes out in whiteface, and I just lost it. I lost my mind.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
Yeah, I was when the soundtrack to Book of Mormon hit, I think it was like 2011 that's like first premiered. When the soundtrack hit, I was obsessed with it. Like, it was one of those things where I was just like so obsessed with that thing. I listened to it over and over again, and then I eventually saw the show in like 2013, 2014. It was after the original cast had actually left the show, or I think most of them had. I think Josh Gad might have still been in it, actually.
I feel like he would have been hilarious.
It's the one thing I can like really tolerate Josh Gad in, honestly.
Yeah, that's fair.
But seeing it on Broadway was like an awesome experience, and like especially I think because you got to see the stage play, so you get more of the that Trey Parker and Matt Stone humor too.
Oh yeah,
which I love
for sure. And I don't know, there's like parts of the songs it's really hard to understand the context of, like unless you're actually watching it.
Right.
So they're like the part where a dude just like jumps in the middle of a song and yells, "I have maggots in my scrotum," makes zero sense until you actually see the stage play.
Yes.
So it's like nice to have context to that now.
Definitely,
And the song, I Believe, is so much funnier now that you realize that he was singing that next to a warlord.
Yes. Yeah, it's like it's a great like powerhouse song, but it also is like ridiculous and funny, and like it's one of those things that I think I got the context for that. I think they played it at the Tonys or something, and so they showed like a performance of it there, so I understood it. Like, but that was that was years ago. So like if you didn't watch that specific Tonys performance and only knew it from the soundtrack, then it would make no sense.
But yeah, so overall it was a great experience. Actually, the first stage play I'd ever seen.
Really?
So,
What?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Connecticut. We don't have those things there.
That's fair.
I'm sure I'm sure the local theaters of Connecticut would be very upset to hear you say that. But
up in arms right now.
I mean, they're a bunch of Connecticut people. I can take them.
That's fair. All right, so Book of Mormon is your big discussion, and also our Avengers Endgame review, which again, people can go check out.
The first thing I want to talk about is this new Shudder original series, which is The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs.
Friday, March 29th, opening night of The Last Drive-In, the series on Shudder, starring me, Joe Bob Briggs, doing more of that freaky stuff you love. A double feature every week hosted by Joe Bob Briggs. Written by Joe Bob Briggs, directed by Joe Bob Briggs, produced by Joe Bob Briggs. I'll be working the camera, I'll be working the sound. Special effects by Joe Bob Briggs. Lighting by Joe Bob Briggs, with a special appearance by one or two guests who will be fascinating, not for their intrinsic value as people, but because they're being interviewed by Joe Bob Briggs, me, kicking ass on The Last Drive-In, the series. I'll be kicking so much ass, I'll probably kick my own ass.
And Joe Bob Briggs is apparently, I didn't really know who he was before this, was a kind of drive-in B-movie specialized film critic. In the 80s, I think it was, he had a show called Monster Vision on the movie channel or something, like one of those early premium cable show movies, or channels, I mean, where he would show these kind of drive-in movies and talk about them and stuff, and it's kind of like this cult figure, and Shudder brought him on. He's done a couple like marathons, like they did like a Thanksgiving marathon and a Christmas marathon or something, but they've given him a recurring series where he does double features every Friday night.
Yeah, and the first time they did a marathon, it like broke Shudder. Like that was
it crashed the whole site.
Like it completely crashed the site because so many people were going on for like the big return of Joe Bob Briggs. It's kind of a big deal for like horror movie geeks.
Yeah, which is kind of interesting. And then I had no idea about it. I mean, I knew when that marathon happened, but I didn't know who this guy was.
Right.
And it's really cool. Shudder has this thing, Shudder TV, where they have like a live stream, basically, of just like a 24/7 like shuffle of their movies, which is really cool. Which is where the show airs like live, quote unquote, typically. But it's also available like in their catalog. And he does double features, and he does like a intro segment, just like Joe Bob's whole shtick is that he's like this Texas, cowboy boot, bolo tie, Lone Star beer drinking kind of like down and dirty film critic.
Right.
So he gives a lot of fun like context, making fun of. The first movie is Chud, which is a famous cult movie, monster movie, and he just goes on a tear about how it's made by these like New York theater dropout guys in their spare time, and they don't care about this horror movie that they're making, and he like tears into him real hard. Plus, Chud's not that good.
Chud is not very good. I watched the Chud episode of this show too, and it was not good. I mean, Joe Bob was great. Like he was a lot of fun to watch, and it made it worth watching. But Chud, the movie itself, I mean, it has a couple of interesting things about it. Like Daniel Stern's in it, and like John Hurd and John Goodman has like a small role in it. But it's not good. It is not a good movie.
Not a great movie. And Joe Bob is just a wealth of like behind the scenes factoid, little tidbits about the making of these movies and stuff. So it's definitely worth it to watch the Joe Bob version of movies because, yeah, it's a little more fun. And I'm going to run down the movies I've seen so far. It's just Chud and Castle Freak, which is the first double feature. Society and Cue the Winged Serpent, which is the second. And Deathgasm and The Changeling, which is the third double feature.
Okay.
And of those ones, I want to highlight Cue the Winged Serpent, which is a Larry Cohen movie from 1982. Which I didn't really know about Larry Cohen until I watched this movie, and I think it kind of released at similar time to when Larry Cohen passed away, like this episode of Joe Bob. And he's this, like, the king of exploitation, quote unquote, where he wrote and directed a ton of those movies.
Yeah.
And Cue the Winged Serpent, here you go, here's the plot synopsis for you guys.
Okay.
A down and dirty, like, low-level criminal accidentally discovers the nest of Quetzalcoatl, the, like, ancient Aztec or is it Aztecs? Oh man, that's a bad thing to get wrong. Mesoamerican, let's go with that.
Sure, there you go.
God. So he discovers the nest of Quetzalcoatl in the spire of the Chrysler Building and holds New York City hostage with it.
Holy crap.
That sounds
What
awesome.
more do you need me to say to make you watch this movie? Yeah, it's amazing. It's so, like, sleazy. David Carradine plays, like, the cop investigating these murders, which is really Quetzalcoatl eating people and stuff. It's really violent, and it's got this awesome claymation monster as Quetzalcoatl, and it's just, like, it's a goof, man. There's a moment where Michael Moriarty plays, like, the criminal guy, and he is making his demands to the police, and he's like, I'll tell you where it is if you give me $1 million, tax-free. I've never paid taxes a day in my life, and I'm not going to start now. And it's shit, like, it's cool, like, lines like that. It's amazing. So definitely recommend Cue the Winged Serpent if you're going to pick any of them. That one, and also I just watched The Changeling today, which is from 1980, starring George C. Scott, where it's this grieving guy's family dies, and he rents out, like, a 30-room mansion to be by himself with his work. And of course, like, it's haunted and spooky shit.
Yeah,
but it's amazing because it's George C. Scott in this, like, weird, atmospheric haunted house movie. So that's really cool.
Yeah, I have heard of The Changeling, and Joe Bob Briggs. He's on the cover of Fangoria #2.
Really?
The second issue of Fangoria, which came out, I want to say, like, January. So I have that, and there's an interview with Joe Bob Briggs. There's some people talking about the influence of Joe Bob Briggs and that kind of thing. It's really cool. So if you're interested in Joe Bob Briggs as a figure, Fangoria #2, definitely worth checking out. I recommend that.
And then I have two other movies. They're both the other two Vinegar Syndrome movies that I bought, which I've talked about. Actually, I haven't talked about on this show. Vinegar.
You have talked about it, Film Book, but it's going to take some getting used to.
Yeah.
Are these your last two Vinegar Syndrome Blu-rays?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow, it seems like you've been going through these for forever.
Well, I bought them. So Vinegar Syndrome is like this boutique Blu-ray film restoration publisher kind of thing. And I've blind bought 4 movies, basically, based on the owner was on a podcast or something, and he was like, I think these are all cool. And I was like, well, okay, I'll go buy them. So, like, I fell for his tricks. And I had never got around to watching them. And I had some free time recently, and I was like, fuck it. I have watched 2 of them. I'm going to watch these last 2 I have left. And the first one I watched was The Undertaker from 1988, starring Joe Spinell, who is, like, this longtime character actor that was in Godfather and Godfather 2 and all these crazy, like, highbrow movies as, like, this side character. And he plays, like, the slasher guy in this. It's his last role, and he is just going bonkers. Like, he is just off the rails. Like, it's amazing. It's so good, and it's very gory. And I think it's shot, like, upstate New York-ish area, like Hudson Valley area.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's got that appeal, that look to it. I mean, it might be Westchester, I don't know, but somewhere over there.
Yeah.
Upstate, quote unquote.
Anything outside of the city,
Westchester's
it's upstate. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's north of the Bronx. It's upstate. But yeah, this Undertaker is great. It's just this kind of sleazy slasher movie, and it's the stuff we would see at one of these kind of like all-day horror movie marathon things we go to.
Right.
And it's a lot of fun. And the other one I watched is called Bloody New Year from 1987. And this is this British, I don't really know how to classify it, just like supernatural horror movie. It's the story of this like group of preppy kids are at like the seaside like amusement park or whatever. And these punk kids start giving them problems and like, fisticuffs ensue and the preppy kids run away and they jump in a sailboat and like sail like fuck you guys and like steal somebody's sailboat and sail away from these punk kids. And the boat sinks and like or crashes on the rocks or whatever of this like mysterious island where the only thing on the island is this large abandoned hotel. So they go in there to like try to get a phone and like get dry clothes and stuff. And it's this very surreal, like it's almost Lynchian. Like it's this whole weird like time loop thing, and you can't trust what your eyes are showing you, and like all this stuff. And they realize they're like in 1959, and there's like all these, and it takes place in the 60s or something, and they're back in the 50s, and there's like this caretaker that keeps disappearing and showing up, and it's just weird and gory, and it has some really creative kills, especially a guy getting sucked into like a vat of boiling water. Like they go into the kitchen and it comes alive, and like the kitchen, like plates and knives and shit starts flying, and like the giant pot and the lid is like making a mouth, and he gets sucked into the boiling water, and like that's great. Who doesn't love that shit?
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so that's Bloody New Year and the Undertaker are my Vinegar Syndrome picks. The last ones I have.
Nice.
And then I want to just run down real quick. I've been reading a lot of comic books lately, and I want to run down some cool stuff. The first is Die by Kieran Gillen. Kieran Gillen is currently also writing The Wicked and Divine, which is a very popular comic book that people might have heard of.
Okay, I was going to say Kieran Gillen. Isn't she like Nebula from the Avengers movies?
It's Kieran Gillen. And Die is the story about these kids as teenagers get sucked into a tabletop RPG world, like a fantasy world, and they come back 2 years later, and one of them's missing. And like they can't talk about it, and then as adults they get sucked in again to like solve the mystery of their friend.
Okay,
and it's cool. It's weird as shit, and it's got fantasy tabletop stuff. So like that's my dream. That's my boo.
It's like D&D Jumanji.
Yeah, exactly. It's D&D Jumanji. Yeah. What more do I need to say for you guys to read that? Right? Come on. That's the elevator pitch.
Sounds cool.
And then the other one I want to highlight is Headlopper by Andrew McLean. And Headlopper is, it's kind of drawn in this, like, 80s metal, like, heavy metal cartoon style kind of thing, but, like, also Adventure Time, like that weird, you know what I mean? Like, super gory, weird art style. And it's this Viking dude with the head of a witch that's still alive, and he just gets, like, embroiled in this, like, weird king needs the head of the witch because it's magical power. And it's weird and fantasy shit. So that's cool. Read those. Die and Headlopper.
Cool. All right. So that's it for your discussions, right, Mike?
Yes, that's it. No more.
All right. Cool. So that
was more discussions than Mike had the entirety of FilmBookCast.
You're not wrong.
That is true. That is very true. All right. So let's get into my discussions. I got a few movies and a TV show I wanted to get into. The first of which is Long Shots.
Everybody, this is my best friend, and he just lost his job today. All right. He's at rock bottom.
It's not that bad.
And I'm going to make him feel better. I'm going off grid till tomorrow. Matter of fact, everybody's got the day off. Everybody's got the day off. Y'all got the day off. Everybody go home. I'm so appreciative of all you guys' hard work. I love every single one of you except you, Tad. Bagel Friday is for everybody, Tad. You don't think we know you taking the bagels?
Yeah, Tad, not cool.
Xander, I need 2 cans of the Pamplemousse LaCroix. I need that filled with Johnny Walker Blue and CBD oil. Do you want one?
Directed by Jonathan Levine and starring Seth Rogen and Charlize Theron. Jonathan Levine has directed a few Seth Rogen movies in his day. He did 50-50 with Seth Rogen, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and The Night Before with Seth Rogen, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and Anthony Mackie. This one does not have Joseph Gordon-Levitt, but it does have Seth Rogen. And basically, it's a pretty solid like romantic comedy. Charlize Theron plays a Secretary of State and making a run for president. While Seth Rogen plays a journalist who's known her since he was a kid, and she was actually his babysitter when they were young, and she hires him to be a speechwriter, and hijinks ensue. Essentially, it's a vehicle for Seth Rogen to do wacky Seth Rogen things. Plenty of funny stuff. I don't think anything reaches like the best of Seth Rogen comedies. Like I think like Neighbors, This Is the End, Superbad, Knocked Up. Like those are like the big Seth Rogen movies to me. And this is like amiable. It's solid. It's fun. I enjoyed it. I think Charlize Theron's doing great in this movie. She gives it her all. She's a blast to watch. And the political satire is a little all over the place. I think at points, but there is some funny stuff. Bob Odenkirk plays the president of the United States. And his whole character is that he was a TV actor who decided to run for president, and now he's leaving after one term because he wants to break into movies. That's like his whole That's his
my God.
whole character, and that results in some pretty funny stuff. O'Shea Jackson Jr., who was Ice Cube in the Straight Outta Compton movie, and is also the son of Ice Cube. He's in this movie, and he's really funny. June Diane Raphael from How Did This Get Made? Randall Park, a lot of very funny people are in this movie, and it's just a pretty enjoyable time. Solid enough. If you like Seth Rogen comedies, Long Shot is another one, basically.
Nice.
So yeah, that's a Long Shot. And then I wanted to talk about the documentary that I just watched recently, which is available on Hulu right now. It came out last year, and it's called Three Identical Strangers. Have you guys heard of this movie?
Yes, I have heard of it.
Okay, you have heard of this. Okay, cool. Yeah, this is directed by Tim Wardle, and this is a really good documentary about these three triplets in upstate New York, actually. It's in the Catskill area. Where this happened. There's a lot of upstate New York talk in this podcast.
Yeah.
But yeah, Catskill area, not too far from where I grew up. These three triplets in the 70s who were separated at birth and through insane happenstance found each other again when they were 19. And they became minor celebrities in the process. They went on talk shows and that kind of thing and all that kind of stuff. They actually had a cameo in a movie with Madonna in it. I forget which movie it was, but they were in it. They showed a clip from it in this movie. But as life went on, they started to kind of question some of the reasons why they were separated and stuff like that. And they started discovering very dark truths about how and why they were separated. So the movie is insane enough on its own, just with the story of holy shit, these people found each other when they were 19. And it's that first half hour is really just about that and how insane that is. But then the next hour or so, it goes into some really crazy stuff, and it's it gets very compelling, and it's very holy shit, how could this have possibly happened in real life kind of thing.
Wow.
But it did, and it's really good. Whenever I'm watching a documentary and a shocking twist happens, Mike, I always think of you now, because I think you were describing Wild Wild Country or something, where they, episode 2 ends and it says, and then the thing happened, and and it hooks you in, and that's this is one movie, not a documentary TV show, but it's structured that way, where it's maybe 30 to 45 minutes in, it does that, and then the thing happened, and you're like, what?
I must know more.
Exactly. So yeah, Three Identical Strangers is the name of the movie, and it's on Hulu right now. Worth checking out. It's a pretty insane story. And then I had another movie on the list, which is probably my favorite movie out of the ones I'm talking about today, and it's called Her Smell.
Hey, you're actually suing me, right? Or is that somebody else?
I'm suing.
I'll see you in court. Judge, Your Honor. Is it a crime in this country to prefer the witching hour? I was born with an internal clock. The doctor left it inside me. I called to the stand. My mother, Mrs. Anya Adamczyk, Miss Wolinska. Mrs. Adamczyk, do you swear solemnly that your daughter was born with a rare neurological condition that renders the passage of time an enforced illusion from the external world? Judge, please. I just can't seem to get going till later at night. You think I want to be late? Those people deserve a show. And you have no idea the hell that I've been through. I am wishing there was any way on earth I could get going, but I just don't think I will make it. Promise me, Mama, when I die, have the coffin arrive half an hour late and on the side written in gold letters are the words, sorry for the delay.
Do you guys know Her Smell at all? The movie. Don't be gross, Mike.
I was trying to think of a Hardly Knew Her, but I couldn't.
You can just say Hardly Knew Her.
Okay, so I'm guessing no, right? Is that
no?
Okay,
Yeah,
so this is a movie directed by Alex Ross Perry, and this stars Elizabeth Moss as the lead singer of a '90s punk rock band. And that one sentence checks off so many of my boxes.
I'm in.
I was in the bag for this no matter what. But Her Smell is legit great. This movie's amazing. It's essentially composed of 5 very long scenes set years apart that show the rise, fall, and comeback story of a fictional singer named Becky something. And the structure actually reminded me a lot of the Steve Jobs movie with Michael Fassbender, where that movie was the first third takes place, they all take place at different conferences, and it's all just one long scene, basically. This does that. Essentially, there's a long scene backstage at a concert. There's a long scene where they're recording their album and all that kind of stuff, and it's great. Elizabeth Moss is amazing in this movie, just going all in, channeling Courtney Love a lot in her performance, just reveling in the nastiness and just absolutely perfect in the quieter moments too. The dialogue is really sharp and unique, and the music is fucking great. It's all original songs. They all sound like they could have come straight out of the 90s. The end credits are awesome too, because they actually have all the bands in the movie and different posters and CDs and fake things that they made for each of the bands that are splayed across, and it's really cool. And it really captures that sense of that 90s punk rock world. That's granted, I was 7 when the 90s ended. But I 90s punk rock is my genre of music. It's the stuff that I've most entrenched myself in, and this movie captures it really well. It's just that dirty kind of grimy world. You're backstage behind shows, these absolute shitholes, and there's broken bottles everywhere and all that stuff, and it's great. Ensemble cast has Cara Delevingne in it, Dan Stevens, Amber Heard, Eric Stoltz is in this movie, and they're all killing it. I dug the hell out of it, and it's one that I found myself thinking about a lot since I saw it about 2 weeks ago. So yeah, that is Her Smell, and it's in theaters right now. I don't know for how much longer. It's an indie release. I think it might have been an A24. I'm not entirely sure about that, but anyway, Her Smell, really fantastic. So definitely give that a watch, especially if you're into that 90s punk rock stuff, because it's awesome. Anyway, I have one last discussion on my list, guys, and it's more of a shout out than it is anything else. But Veep aired its final episode this past weekend, guys. And I'm very upset about it.
Nope, never mind. I also couldn't think of a joke.
Man, firing on all cylinders, Mike.
Killing it. Welcome to episode 1, baby.
Hey, Gary.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you want to be president?
To give it to you, of course.
Oh, that's good. God, I know what I want to say, but I can't find the words.
What if you talk and I type? How about that? You just say it out loud, and then I'll just type it.
Okay,
yeah,
let's try that.
Okay. Great. Oh, this is fun.
Well, from the time I was a girl.
From the time I was a pretty girl.
No, not pretty girl.
No.
From the time I was a girl.
Oh, but you're so pretty.
I know. But anyway, I have fought.
Oh, good.
Every day.
So good.
To make America.
A very good place.
Nope, don't finish my sentences.
I thought that's where you were going.
You don't know where I'm going.
To the White House.
You know what I would like to tell people, but obviously I can't?
No, say it here.
I should be president.
Yep.
Because it is my goddamn turn. I was the game changer.
Yep.
I took a dump on the glass ceiling, and I shaved my muff in the sink of the old boys club.
Muff.
But for 3 years, Hughes kept me chained to a radiator in some basement in Cleveland. So, as far as I'm concerned, America owes me an 8-year stay in the White House, and this time I want a war.
Yes. All right. Do you want me to read that back?
Oh, we can't use any of that. I mean, it sounds like I'm shouting from a balcony in Munich.
Like a Vita.
Okay, just put down something about how I want to give the American people a better deal or some fucking crap like that.
It's very Kennedy-esque.
John, not Teddy. Or the rapey one. Or the one that killed that little girl.
So Veep aired its final episode the other night as of this recording, so I wanted to give it a shout out and say that its final season was great. And the series finale was fucking exceptional. It's kind of blew my mind. It's weird because the final season of Veep has been airing at the same time as the final season of Game of Thrones, and one show really effectively depicted the rise to power of an insane, power-mad queen, and the other one was Game of Thrones.
Wow, slam.
I say that as somebody who's been mostly enjoying this last season of Game of Thrones, but
you shut your whore mouth.
But anyway, Veep has been absolutely incredible this last season, and I've been watching the show since the beginning. I think the first season aired in 2012, 2011, something like that. And I've been watching it, every week, whenever it's on. It always felt like an event to me. Veep was just always TV that I felt like I had to watch. Mike, you used to watch Veep, right?
Yeah, I think I watched the first 2 seasons or so, and I loved it. I just am lazy, and even too lazy to watch TV. It's one of those things.
That's fair. Collin, have you ever watched Veep?
I have not, unfortunately.
It's a great show, guys. I mean, you got to get back on it, Mike, because it's so good. And I think I was really worried about the show after season 4, because the first 4 seasons are basically perfect, and then Armando Iannucci, the creator of the show, left the show. And he ended up going on to direct The Death of Stalin. He has a new HBO show that he's working on. But I was very worried about the future of Veep at that point. And then season 5, which was a show run by David Mandel, who finished the show to completion, ended up being like my favorite season of the show. Season 5 is incredible. It's so good, and there are so many like specific lines of dialogue from Veep that I like think about all the time. Like it's because the show is so like exceptionally written. Like there's so many just insane insults, and like the way they use profanity in this show, it's art. It's an art to how they do it. It's really incredible. And in an era where the reality of politics can be very hard to parody, I think Veep was savage this season, like absolutely insane, and delivered like the strongest political satire I have seen anybody do since Trump took office. Like since that happened, like this show has been like what I needed. Like there's the stuff on SNL, and like that can occasionally be kind of biting, but like it's generally speaking not. And, you have John Oliver, and like you have like those kind of pundits, like the comedian news shows like Daily Show and John Oliver and stuff like that. And often they do a pretty good job, but like this show, like it just does so well. Like I mean, the final season essentially is Selena Meyer, Julia Louis-Dreyfus running for president again. Because if you follow the trajectory of the show, she was vice president for the first 3 seasons, became president when the president resigned for the 4th season, then had to run for president again, lost, and now it's kind of like her triumphant comeback tour. So this season was her running for president at the same time as Jonah Ryan, the most idiotic character in the show, also running for president.
Oh my God.
And it's like you would think they would just take everything that Trump did and put it onto Jonah, and that would be like the show. But no, they kind of take elements from everything that like is happening in the real world and spread it out around all the characters. So like Jonah is creating this base that's filled with like hate-filled people and ignorance and all that stuff, and he's denying science, and he's an anti-vaxxer. But meanwhile, Selena is the one who is conspiring with China to get to get elected president and that kind of thing, and so it's kind of spread out evenly among all the main characters, and it's really interesting. I loved it. It was such a good season of the show. I'm really sad to see it go because I feel like I almost like need it in my life a little bit. But I think it's ending its run as one of like the best TV comedies of all time. Like at this point, like 7 seasons, they were all very strong. Like it was a great run for Veep, and the ensemble cast of the show built up was absolutely insane over the course of the years with Gary Cole and Kevin Dunn and Tony Hale and Sam Richardson and all these great people, and then Julia Louis-Dreyfus at the center of it all, who was just absolutely insanely good. Like it's unreal how good Julia Louis-Dreyfus is on this show. Especially in the finale, which is one of the darkest things I feel like I've ever seen. It goes to some very, very dark places in the finale, but it's absolutely perfect. And Julia Louis-Dreyfus, I mean, she has won an Emmy 6 times for this show, for the first 6 seasons, and I think she will win for this 7th season. And every time she wins an Emmy, like the first couple times she won an Emmy, it's like, yeah, great, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, she's great. And then after a while, it was like, all right, should maybe spread the love to someone else who might want an Emmy instead, because we've given enough to Julia Louis-Dreyfus. But Julia Louis-Dreyfus kept winning because I can't think of anybody who I would rather give it to. She's so good in this show. It's incredible. So yeah, Veep, final season. Just wanted to give it a shout out, which ended up being more of a, hey, this show is amazing, go watch it. But that's what this podcast is for. So yeah, Veep, its finale was amazing. The final season was great, and the entire 7-season run. If you haven't watched Veep, it's a great show to watch.
That's my next binge show to binge.
There you go. I convinced one, and that's all it takes. All right, and I think that about wraps up our discussion, guys. Let's move on into our retrospective of Pokemon.
Can we fast forward, or is this live TV? Move back to you understand it. We want to take some time for a retrospective. Please come along so I can hear your take, and I'll admire the opinions you make.
All right, it's time for our retrospective on the Pokemon franchise. Now, this kind of works the way it worked for our last episode of FilmBookCast, which, Collin, you helpfully ran down the minutes of earlier, so people know that there was a retrospective of the entire MCU in that episode, and we kind of like the idea of doing that. And this isn't something we're going to do every single week for these franchises, but for like something that we feel kind of resonates for us, or something that we can speak to with authority, then yeah, we'll give it a shot. So yeah, we're going to do a whole retrospective on Pokemon right now. Now, guys, I want to take you back to September 1998, because that is when the first episode of Pokemon premiered in the U.S., And it's when the first games, Pokemon Red and Blue, were released in the U.S. They both hit at the same time, and the world would never be the same. And I say that partially as a joke, but also, like, I'm kind of being serious about
But for
that,
real, though.
in a weird way. Like, I think looking back on it, Pokemon is very strange because it was such a massive phenomenon. And, like, the show is still running today. The video games pretty much single-handedly revolutionized handheld gaming. The first several movies got theatrical releases, and at least the first and second one were big hits. People became obsessed with collecting Pokemon cards. It's still the top-selling trading card game of all time. Like it's still that big, and even today, look, the franchise is huge. I mean, just a what?
Is it actually the best-selling trading card game?
According to Wikipedia, yes.
That actually amazes me.
Yeah, right? It's still big. And even today, the franchise is huge. I mean, just a few short years ago, Pokemon Go was released, guys, and it was the hottest thing for a couple of months. People were wandering around their neighborhoods, sometimes traveling miles and miles just to capture the next Pokemon gym. Were you guys into Pokemon Go?
I did not travel far and wide to catch them all, but I have a bunch of friends who went hard into it. It was wild.
Yeah.
I did Pokemon Go for, like, I think 2 weeks because I was in a long-distance relationship at the time, and the girl I was dating, it was in a rural area, so there were no gyms, there was nothing. So I downloaded it and took a screenshot of my neighborhood and how many gyms and Pokestops and shit there were, and sent it to her, and then about 2 weeks later I installed it because I never used it. So I did it for the jokes. I guess it was worth it.
Yeah, no, I played a little bit of Pokemon Go when it first came out. Like, I had it for maybe a few weeks, and yeah, it was kind of the same thing where it's like, it was cool. Like, I thought it was like a pretty innovative idea for sure, but it just wasn't for me, I guess. But my brother got super into it. My brother was always like the bigger Pokemon guy than I was, I think. But here's the thing: we were here for all of it. Like, you know, I was 5 years old when Pokemon hit, and it was a full-on obsession. It consumed my life. You know, like, I remember needing to have everything associated with Pokemon that I could find.
Wow.
You know, like, I dragged my mom to go to the movies to see Pokemon the first movie. I begged my parents for Pokemon cards. I scheduled my week around tuning in to Kids WB on Saturday mornings to see the latest episode. Like, Pokemon, like, to me, it wasn't just a pop culture phenomenon, you know, because we didn't have the context to view it like that. It was just, like, our life. You know, we were 5 years old. This was all we knew was Pokemon. Now, I mean, Collin, we have you on today because you are a huge Pokemon fan. So, have you been a fan since you were, you know, 5 or whatever?
So 1998, I was 7 years old, and I remember, like, Pokemon came out, and I wasn't like the first kid to have it, but people started talking about it at school, and I just, like, had to have whatever it was, right? And so I have a brother who's 4 years older than me, so it's like we convinced my parents to. We both had Game Boys at the time, so we convinced our parents to buy us, you know, Red and Blue. He got Red, I got Blue. Yep. You know, I fell in love with it absolutely immediately. My first Pokemon was a Bulbasaur. Raised that little fucker. I raised him to be a level 100 Venusaur. And, like, it took like a year and a half because I was 7 and no attention span. But, like, I remember it was like there was actually there's like an actual emotional reaction to Pokemon. It was wild. And, like, I started watching the show. I probably watched the first the Kanto region series, and then the Orange Islands, and then I watched the Johto one as well. Those are regions.
Right. The fact that you even know which season corresponds to which region is why you're here, basically.
Yeah, that's fair. So I watched that much of the show. I kind of fell off mostly because I didn't have a chance to watch a ton of it because they aired on Sunday mornings. And I had to go to church.
What a shame.
We didn't have, like, a TiVo or anything. And my mom was like, we're not, like, recording all of this on tape and just having piles of Pokemon tapes in the house. But yeah, so, like, starting off, I went full into it.
Yeah, cool. And Mike, what was your? Were you a big Pokemon kid when the show was, like, hitting off and the games and stuff?
Yeah, you know, I didn't have a Game Boy handheld for a very long time, so I never got a chance to play the early games or anything like that.
You never played Red and Blue?
No, never did it.
What?
Yeah.
I had that same reaction when he told me that our junior year of college.
Yeah. But I was big into the show. I loved the show, the cards. I remember playing Pokemon, like the card game, with my friends, and none of us knowing how the rules worked, and we were just making it like, no, he would win. Like, yeah, whatever. Like, we didn't understand what it was. But I definitely remember Pokemon cards at my elementary school getting banned. Like, people were getting, like,
Really?
like fights were starting, like, people were stealing them, like, shit was going down over Pokemon, man.
Same thing happened at my school. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, both, like, Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! Got banned from my school because kids went crazy.
I don't remember them getting banned at my school. Now that I think about it, but they might have, and I might have just ignored the ban or something. I don't know. Now, all that said, I of course was super into Pokemon as I was a kid. I was even more obsessed with Digimon,
Said nobody ever.
And I still maintain it was the better TV show. But like, I was a fan of both, and it always bugged me when people would say that one sucks and the other one was better, because they would always say Digimon sucks and that the Pokemon was better. It wasn't a two-way street. But as far as the rest of the franchise, like, Digimon I think had the better TV show, and the Digimon movie is pretty banging. Just great ska soundtrack on the Digimon movie, by the way.
Remember in college when you made us binge watch the Digimon?
Make you?
Well, suggested and put it on, and we were all just kind of like, okay.
And then locked you in the room and wouldn't let you leave.
I believe what happened is that me and my roommate Kyle were drunkenly watching Digimon all the time because it hit Netflix. And you guys just happened to be in the room when we were getting drunk and watching Digimon. That is what happened. But there was a period, like, Pokemon hit Netflix, and I remember when it hit Netflix, my roommates were watching it, and for some reason I wasn't watching it with them. Like, it was one of the, I think they had started watching it when I wasn't there. And if I was there and I was, like, drinking and I was watching Pokemon with them, I might have watched it, because they watched a lot of it.
Same.
And when that happened, I was like, yeah, you know what? It's Pokemon, guys. Like, whatever.
Yeah.
But when the trailer for Detective Pikachu hit, I got like nostalgia rush a little bit, and I went back and watched the first few episodes of the Pokemon TV show just to, like, check it out. And, like, yeah, it's fun. It's still Pokemon. But as far as the games go, like, that was also an obsession for me, and I couldn't tell you how many, like, hundreds of hours I spent playing Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow. Like, I had all of them. And what I can tell you is that, as far as, like, just to illustrate how much time I spent playing those games, years later, like, when I was in college, actually it was that same roommate Kyle who I was watching Digimon with. He had jailbroken his phone with a version of Pokemon Blue on it, and he couldn't figure out how to get out of Mount Moon. So I saw it, and I was like, "Oh, here, give me that." And I grabbed the phone from him, walked out of Mount Moon from memory.
Wow.
He was in the center of it. Like, he was in the absolute center. He was completely lost. And I was like, oh, well, this goes here, this goes here. And I just knew it. I got out of there in like 2 minutes. Because it's just...
That's a lie. You ran into too many Zubats to get out of there in 2 minutes.
Okay. Maybe like 5 minutes.
There you go.
But, I was thinking about it, and, like, in retrospect, like, how fucking genius of a marketing ploy was it by splitting the games into two, right?
It's unreal. Like, to this day, I've bought both copies of every game. Like,
right.
To this day. It's absurd.
And they're the same game.
Yeah,
they're the same game.
They get $70 from me for $35 worth of stuff.
Yes, like, they released 2 versions of the same game, convinced us we needed to get both of them, and then released a third version that was also the same game, and they did it again. Right? With Pokemon Yellow, they just combined Red and Blue, and they were like, yeah, well, Pikachu's following you now. It's the same game, but Pikachu's there. And they kind of did the same thing with did they still do, like, a third game, or did they stop doing that?
Occasionally.
Okay.
Because I know with Black and White and Sun and Moon, they didn't. They did sequels to them. So there was, like, they did, like, Black 2, White 2, and then Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. So I think they did those in lieu of a third. Gotcha.
I mean, as far as my experience with Pokemon goes, like, I was obsessed with Red, Blue, and Yellow. Like, that was my jam. And to this day, like, if you showed me a Pokemon from those games, like, I could recognize it immediately. And I used to have all 150 memorized in order, or the Pokerap version.
That's
like, I could do it either way. And then then Gold, Silver, and Crystal came out, and I was still really into those. I played those, and that was the Johto League. And then I think Pokemon Ruby was the last Pokemon game I really played, and that was around the time that came out in like 2003. And so I was just about 10 years old, and I was kind of moving on from Pokemon. I think I had moved on to Yu-Gi-Oh! At that point, actually.
Yeah.
So I feel like the timing of that kind of makes sense. But you've played the Pokemon games past Ruby, like, just consistently throughout your life. You've been playing Pokemon.
So I did, like, the same thing where I got to, like, middle school, and I was like, I'm too cool for this, but, like, kind of still played it in secret, like didn't tell my friends I was still playing it. And then,
but at home, you still had it going.
But at home, I was just like hours on end, and then I kind of like kept it on the download for a while, and then like just a quick fun story. Like we get to college, Mike and I are living together junior year, and I'm sitting in our living room by myself, just like playing Pokemon on my DS, and our roommate Trevor walks in. And Trevor is the last person in the world you would think would be a nerd, just like on a physical appearance.
Okay.
Yeah,
right?
He's a jock, straight up.
Yeah, yep. And he just looks at me and goes, "Are you playing Pokemon right now?" And I was like, damn it. This is where Trevor figures out that I'm actually a nerd. And I'm like, yeah, I am. And he goes, "Hold on, I'll be right there." He goes into his room, runs out with a shoebox, like something. Like, it looks like it's like hidden under his bed, and it has Game Boys, DSs, and every single Pokemon game ever released. And so we just sit there on the couch playing Pokemon next to each other, not like battling each other or anything, just playing our own individual stories.
Okay.
and like an hour or two later, Mike walks in, just Trevor and I just sitting on the couch playing Pokemon, and just like doesn't know what to say to us.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I've been in that position, Mike, so I get it. Because that's the thing. When I was in high school, like I think I was about 16, and I was still like vaguely aware of Pokemon because my younger brother was still kind of into it. So he was like 5 years younger than me. He played Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, was obsessed with those. But I was out, and my friends were out, and like it just wasn't our thing anymore. And then suddenly, it came back. I don't know what happened, but like I think it was when the kids came back. Yeah. But it was like my friends though. My friends like got really back into it. Like I think it was when the remakes of Gold and Silver came out on the DS because it was like a brand new version of the games, and it was games that they had grown up playing. And they were like, "Hey, cool, Pokemon DS again." And that was like 2009. So yeah, when I say they were into it, like they were really into it. Like they brought their DSs everywhere. They started collecting cards again. They would play card games, and they would play card games in the cafeteria in the lunchroom, and it was so fucking embarrassing.
Oh my god!
I hated the Pokemon card game. Is super fun.
If you know how to play it, I'm sure it is. I never learned.
I've heard it's great.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, but it was very much like, guys, please, like people are looking at us. This isn't cool. You know. But after that, it became clear to me that like the Pokemon franchise still had legs. You know, and I didn't even realize it. So it wasn't a huge surprise to me a couple years later when Pokemon Go became this huge thing, because suddenly this thing that everybody under the age of 30 has memories of was just available for you to play on your phone.
Yeah.
In like this new innovative game that pretty much got to the heart of the franchise, you know, catching them all. How could it not be a huge deal?
And you had to go outside. That
That
crazy.
was the worst part.
Right.
So Pokemon Go started so many fights between me and my now ex-girlfriend.
Oh wow!
So
was Pokemon Go the reason you guys broke up? Just
no, that's a whole different story. But,
okay.
So it was before like they programmed into like to figure out how fast you were moving to prevent you from doing it while driving. And so whenever we were driving somewhere, the passenger would have both phones with Pokemon Go open, trying to catch the Pokemon that we were driving by. The number of fights that I got into because I caught the Pokemon on my phone, but not her phone. So I always had her phone in my left hand, and I couldn't do it with my left hand. It's unreal. Just so many fights because like I would catch Pokemon and she didn't.
How could you?
The worst.
Man, terrible boyfriend right there.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any favorite? Like, in addition to like the Pokemon main games, there are also like 100 million Pokemon spin-off games
Pokemon
too.
Snap is where it's
Pokemon
at.
Pinball.
Oh yeah, both of those were on my list actually.
Yeah.
I love both of those games.
Yeah, Pokemon Pinball is the shit.
Pokemon Pinball was great. It was actually very challenging.
Yeah.
And you know, you get there's a lot of level ups. That was on the Game Boy, and I had the Vibrate pack in the Game Boy game, or at least mine did.
Yeah, you had to have like a AAA battery to make it work.
Yes. But it was great. I love Pokemon Pinball, and Pokemon Snap is a game that like I played so much that like I think if I were to play it now, and I still own it, by the way, like it's on the N64, and I actually have a Pikachu N64 that was packaged with Hey You Pikachu.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Which I still own, and it still works. And Hey You Pikachu, not a very good game, but I was very excited about it because it was like you hooked up a microphone to it, and like you could talk to Pikachu, and then he wouldn't understand you, and and then you get frustrated and never play the game again. It was great. But Pokemon Snap, where you just took pictures of Pokemon, like it's a game you could beat in like 2 hours.
Yeah.
Once you knew everything there was to do in the game, and I eventually learned everything there was to do in the game, and I would just like every once in a while, I'd just break out Pokemon Snap and just beat the game in 2 hours, and like that was which is something I could do. It was great. Also, the Pokemon Stadium games were a ton of fun. Pokemon Stadium. There was 2 of those, and they were both pretty great.
Those were on GameCube, right?
No, Coliseum and XD were on GameCube, which were all
I'm talking the N64 ones. I'm sure there were plenty. I'm sure there were plenty of GameCube ones. And I didn't really have a GameCube.
Those were
eventually
for peasants.
Exactly.
I think there was like 3 on GameCube. There was Coliseum, XD, and then there was Pokemon Puzzle League, which I'm pretty sure.
I have a vague memory. Wasn't that Tetris but with Pokemon or something?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I never played it.
Okay. But that's the thing. It's one of those franchises that just became everywhere. Like, almost immediately. Like, Pokemon was just suddenly a thing. Like, Pikachu balloons were flying in the Thanksgiving Day parade and that kind of thing. You know, it just became part of the pop culture lexicon. Like, if you don't know what Pokemon is, like, you're not living on Earth. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But any other, like, distinct, like, Pokemon memories for you guys? Anything that you wanted to throw out there?
So I have one other. I actually just texted Mike a picture.
What? I don't even understand what it was.
So we're going to get to that in a second. So, it was my current roommate's 30th birthday last week. His girlfriend legit set up a full, like, Pokemon-themed scavenger hunt through the city of Syracuse for him.
What?
Yeah, it was wild. And it culminated with us watching Pokemon the first movie on the big screen in the outfield of the minor league baseball park.
Wow.
I thought that was photoshopped. I can't believe that was a real fucking picture.
No, if you look at it, like, you see all of us in lawn chairs in front of it.
Oh my god. We need to include this in the like the episode write-up or something.
Yeah, it was bizarre. So, like, she just, like, rented out the stadium so we could sit in the outfield and just watch this hour and 10-minute movie.
That's awesome.
It was just ridiculous and, like, such a nostalgia trip just to watch this movie again, because I haven't seen it since I was like 10.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen it since I have a VHS of it back home, and I have it. I saw it in theaters. I got the holographic Mew card that came with it.
Yep.
Which, by the way, I mean, we're talking about Detective Pikachu later. Were you guys very excited when you got your trading cards at the?
Oh fuck yeah, it was.
I walked in and I just like, just to show how much, like, Pokemon has never really left me. Like, I walked in. I was with a girl actually, and we. Like, the 2 of us were walking in, I, like, scanned our tickets, and then the person who was giving our tickets, like, almost forgot the Pokemon cards, and she, like, and I didn't know that we were getting Pokemon cards, and we were, like, walking down the hall, and, like, the usher was like, hey, did you want your Pokemon cards? And I turned around and was like, yes! Like, like, what? So it's, I got a couple of packs of Pokemon cards, because the girl didn't want them.
You got more than one?
Yes, so I got a Pikachu, a Jigglypuff, and a Snubbull.
I got the Jigglypuff. Like,
nice.
I didn't get a Pokemon card.
You didn't get them?
They might have just been out because you didn't go. Like, I don't know. I walked in and, like, the ushers, like, scanning tickets was like very nonchalant. Like, do you want these Pokemon cards? It was a group of like 6 of us, like, but ages like 27 to 30ish. And, like, you guys want Pokemon cards? We all looked at them like, what the fuck? Yeah. Why wouldn't we want free Pokemon cards?
Exactly. I'm sorry, Mike.
Like, who doesn't love opening a pack of trading cards?
That's true.
True.
Because you never know what you're going to get. That's
exactly.
Life is like a box of Pokemon cards.
Everyone has a gambling problem.
That junior year, I learned a lot of nerdy stuff about Collin. You were disappearing every Friday night to go play Magic. I was like, where the fuck are you going? And also, you play Pokemon every day.
Dude, the day you caught me, like, going to play Magic is one of the funniest moments. It's so funny. I tried so hard to hide that.
You would literally sneak out of the apartment every Friday night, and I was like, where are you going? I, like, happened to catch him one time.
Yeah, and I was like, in my head, I was like, because I had a backpack filled with Magic cards, and I was like, it's a Friday night, and I haven't been to the library in 3 years. Mike's not going to believe I'm going to study.
Go play Magic.
Yeah. Got outed as a Magic nerd. That's
and now my job is making it so stores can sell Magic cards better.
Yeah, there you go.
Look at that.
It all came full circle.
Yeah.
But anyway, getting back to Pokemon the first movie. Yeah, I haven't seen that since it was in theaters, but that was a big deal.
Yeah.
I remember just being so hyped for it. And then I saw that one. I saw Pokemon 2000 in theaters also, and I was also pretty psyched for that. And then by the time Pokemon 3 came out, I wasn't as into Pokemon anymore. That was the one with Entei, right?
Yeah.
And that was still, my brother was still really into it, and so I think we still have a VHS of that somewhere. But after that, it was like, I watched the Kanto Pokemon stuff, and then I saw a little bit of Orange Islands, I think. I feel like when Johto hit is when I kind of fell off the show. And, and I've probably seen episodes here and there since then, but, like, that was around the time that I was, like, phasing out of Pokemon. But I do want to share, like, the distinct memory I have when I was, like, maybe 5 or 6 years old, of begging my dad for Pokemon Yellow. Because this one lets Pikachu follow you. I have to have it. And I already had Pokemon Blue and Red. Like, I had both of them. And he told me that if I scored just one goal at my soccer game that day, he would get it for me. And I think he figured that since I was terrible at soccer, and hadn't scored a goal all season, that I wouldn't get one and he wouldn't be held to that thing. But joke was on him because I scored that goal. And I got my Pikachu game. So that's just, it was the perfect motivation. Yes,
that's kind of messed up, though. Like, what if you didn't score that goal? Like, that becomes traumatizing.
It could have been. Or it could have been a life lesson. I think he might have gotten it for me anyway. But, like... Or maybe just like a few weeks later I would have gotten it,
Yeah.
Because I feel like it was around, like, it wouldn't have been around Christmas time if soccer was going on. But I think it might have been around my birthday or something. So, like, it would have been coming up. Like, I probably would have gotten Pokemon Yellow either way. But, like, I had to have it. You know what I mean? So I scored that goal, got in Pokemon Yellow, and that was that. But, yeah.
I definitely remember going to, like, birthday parties at the movies to see the first movie and probably the second one. But I don't remember if I've ever seen anything after that.
Okay, yeah. Do you have any other, like, Pokemon-associated memories, though, Mike? Any, like, things like
there's that? The one, I think it's a specific episode, when Charmander's tail almost goes out, right?
That's when Ash gets his Charmander.
Yeah, that's a harsh one.
It's tough. There's 2 episodes of Pokemon that made me cry, and that's one of them.
That's the only episode I remember.
That's the only one you remember? You don't remember Squirtle Squad or
I mean, I remember the memes. I don't remember the actual episode.
Well, they found a gang of wandering Squirtles with sunglasses. That was the
and they were just little pieces of shit. It was great.
Yeah, amazing. But Charmander is my favorite Pokemon, by the way, and so yeah, I do very much remember that episode of Pokemon.
It's probably because it's like a traumatic episode.
Probably that too. Yes.
What's the other one that made you cry, Colin?
The one where Ash tries to, like, release Pikachu. Like, he thinks that Pikachu's going to be happier with this, like, group of wild Pikachu. And so he just, like, leaves him on a tree stump and tries to walk away. And it's this, like, incredibly sad fucking music going on. And Ash just, like, leaving his Pikachu there. It's absurd. And then, of course, like, Pikachu's crying, Ash is crying, and then eventually, like, Ash runs back and everyone's happy. And,
right.
And Ash continues to be 10 years old for the next 20 years.
Well, that is the thing. The anime's still going strong to this day. I mean, they're still making new episodes of Pokemon. Still same voice actors. I think it's the same person who's been playing Pikachu for the entire 20 years, and also does the voice for the Pikachu parts in this movie, like the ones that's obviously not Ryan Reynolds. When it's just Pika doing Pika, all that. That's the actual, like, original voice of Pikachu, which I think is pretty cool.
Wow.
But yeah, the anime is still going strong. Games are still ongoing. Pokemon Sword and Shield set to debut on the Switch later this year.
Hell yeah.
Which I'm assuming you're hyped about, Colin.
Oh yeah, that actually almost broke my company when that got announced. People just
really,
people just stopped working to look at spoilers about Pokemon. It was awesome.
Okay, that sounds about right. And then the card game has consistently been tops for the past 20 years. Do you get it? Because Topps, the card company.
That's clever, and I still don't believe it, though.
And now we've got this new live-action movie that aims to make the Pokemon feel like living, breathing creatures in the real world. And yeah, this trailer dropped a few months back. And, again, Mike, it sent you in an existential spiral, which to me is still the funniest thing. I love that so much.
I'm glad my struggles are funny to you, Mike.
They're funny to me, too, let's be honest.
Because it is hilarious that happened.
But what was your hype level for Detective Pikachu going in?
As you can probably tell, I don't have as deep a nostalgic connection to Pokemon. I guess because I never had the games. That seems like... I know if I had them, I would have sunk like innumerable hours into them.
It seems insane to me that you were 6 years old when Red and Blue came out and you didn't have either one of them.
I didn't have a Game Boy. My parents were like, no. And I was like, oh, okay. I guess. I don't know. I never had them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was hyped. I was excited for it in just like a cultural way. I don't have that like deep personal connection to Pokemon anymore, at least. And I definitely remember being very into the cards and the show and stuff. But yeah, so I mean, I was excited, and it looked like I expected it to just be like goofy and silly, and like the whole shtick to be that Pokemon are real. But I guess more on that later.
Yes, exactly. Now, Collin, what was your hype level for Detective Pikachu going in?
I was immediately just stoked for it, mostly because I felt like it was going to go one or two ways. Like, it was going to be fantastic or hilariously bad.
That's generally as far as the video game track record goes. Video game movies, like, hilariously bad is probably where it would skew towards.
Exactly.
Skew towards.
And I don't know, it was just different from every other Pokemon like media I'd consumed. Like, we're going to see Pokemon in the quote unquote real world, but also not the normal story of just, like, trying to be the Pokemon master, right? It's, you know, a detective story supposedly.
Right. Which this is based on a real game.
It is, yeah.
Detective Pikachu video game, which was released in Japan in like 2016. Has it made its way to America yet?
I think it has. I'm not entirely sure, but
I don't know.
But
some pokey expert you are.
I fell off a little bit. I'm sorry, but no, I was definitely excited to see what they were going to do with, you know, a live action Pokemon movie that wasn't the cookie cutter. Just okay, we want to, you know, we need to be a Pokemon master. So I was definitely hyped to see it, and mostly just to see what all these Pokemon looked like on screen. I think was what I was most excited for.
Yeah, I was definitely curious about that, and I think you can go back to our old FilmBookCast episodes where Mike and I kind of talk about the announcement of this movie. This is like way back, probably like 2016, 2017 or something. I got
the minutes. Hold on.
Okay, great. But Mike and I talked about this movie a lot, like as it was leading up to it, and being like, "Oh shit, Ryan Reynolds is playing Pikachu. This is weird." And you know, we kind of talked about it. We kind of acted as if this was a joke. Like,
for sure.
We did not think a Detective Pikachu movie would be like a real thing that happens, or that, you know, we would one day pay money to go see it. But now we're reviewing it on the first episode of Mike and Mike Go to the Movies. My, how the tables have turned.
Yep.
So yeah, but once the trailer hit, I was a little more sold on this movie and this concept, and so I guess we should just get into it, guys. Let's get into our featured review of Pokemon Detective Pikachu.
Tim, your dad was a legend in this precinct. If you were anything like your dad...
I'm not.
I remember. You wanted to be a Pokemon trainer when you were young.
Yeah, that didn't really work out. Someone there? Whoever you are, I know how to use this.
Oh, jeez. Here we go.
I know. You can't understand me. But put down the stapler or I will electrocute you.
Did you just talk?
Whoa. Did you just understand me?
Oh my God! You can understand me! Stop! I've been so lonely.
They try to talk to me all the time. All they hear is Pika Pika.
You can hear him, right?
Pika Pika! Yeah, Pika Pika Pika. He's adorable.
You're adorable. They can't understand me, kid.
Can no one else hear him?
All right, that was from the trailer for Pokemon Detective Pikachu, the new movie written by Dan Hernandez, Benji Samit, Rob Letterman, and Derek Connolly, and directed by Rob Letterman. It stars Ryan Reynolds, Justice Smith, Catherine Newton, Suki Waterhouse, Omar Chaparro, Chris Gere, Ken Watanabe, and Bill Nighy, among others. And by the way, I did not know Bill Nighy was in this movie until I saw the movie.
What?
And I was like, I was flabbergasted that he was in this movie. I was like, what is Bill Nighy doing here? But that was pretty awesome. That was just a great surprise for me. And the IMDb plot synopsis for Detective Pikachu reads, in a world where people collect Pokemon to do battle, a boy comes across an intelligent, talking Pikachu who seeks to be a detective. That's another very vague IMDb plot synopsis for you there.
Amazing.
But, yeah, so let's...
Spot on.
I mean, it is about a Pikachu who is a detective, so they're not wrong, I guess. It doesn't tell you anything that's not in the title of the movie. So let's start off by acknowledging the fact that this is a really weird choice for the first ever live-action Pokemon movie, right?
For sure.
Okay. I'm glad we can all agree on that. Like, you could have easily done a big screen version of the anime with, you know, Ash, Misty, and Brock, and I think that you could have banked on that to, like, easily make $1 billion. Like that to me seems like the logical route to go if you were going to do, like, a live-action Pokemon. But instead, they went for this, like, Roger Rabbit, Blade Runner for kids type thing, you know, exploring the kind of underground Pokemon world and introducing concepts that are, like, kind of nuts to be thinking about during a Pokemon movie. And I respect that. That's a bold choice. It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see how it works out for them. All right, Collin, since you are the guest and you are the Pokemon expert, what did you think of Pokemon Detective Pikachu?
So I had a ton of fun watching the movie, mostly for, as I just said, like, seeing the Pokemon on screen. just seeing them like interact with like the quote unquote real world. You know, all the Pokemon in the city was super fun to watch. I wasn't like over the moon about the movie itself in terms of just like what was going on. It was a little like, it was predictable. It was like kind of a bland story, but I had a ton of fun watching it just because I thought the Pokemon just looked really cool, and just seeing it with all my friends who are huge Pokemon fans too, and literally was like sitting there like pointing out the different Pokemon we're seeing on the screen, just because they're not like always a focal point, because they're meant to be like part of the society. So it's like it's like, oh shit, you see that Trico who's just like waddling down the sidewalk, or you know, whatever, like bird Pokemon flying around, just like pointing out the different ones we're seeing, because it's they did a really cool job of incorporating like 4 generations of Pokemon into one, you know, one setting. So there's like 600 some odd Pokemon at this point.
Right, and I only really know the first 150. Yeah, and then I'm like out of it.
I got like 300 under my belt, and like that I have to look them up. But like, but it was just like cool to see just all these different generations of Pokemon in one spot. So yeah, okay, cool. Like I had a ton of fun watching it. Like I don't think it was the greatest movie ever, but it was a lot of fun.
All right, Mike, what was your take on Pokemon Detective Pikachu?
I'm going to use a word that I know Mike hates to describe movies.
Okay.
This movie's pretty cute, you know?
All right.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's fun, it's silly, it scratches that, like, I think Blade Runner for Kids is the best description of this movie. That's incredible. Because that's really what it is. It kind of, you know, toes this weird, like, cyberpunk, like...
Yes.
Under, you know, businessman built the whole city thing. Like, what the fuck is going on with that? Underground Pokemon fights. Like, that's amazing. And yeah, that was great. I did have fun on that level, like, just seeing, you know, treating Pokemon, that concept, as if it was real, and, like, taking it to that next logical step of, like, what would be going on in a city that had this kind of stuff.
Right.
And that's fun. As far as, like, the story and stuff goes, I was kind of like, whatever. Just give me more, like, Pikachu hijinks. That's all I was there for. Yeah. And it delivers on that. I think Ryan Reynolds does a great job. He's got the weird... Maybe he should go on the list for the next Complete Works season, because, like, what the fuck is his career?
Yeah, that is a weird career, man. Started off as, like, Van Wilder... ended up, you know, in like 18 different failed comic book movies.
Yeah.
It's Blade Trinity and X-Men Origins and Green Lantern.
Yeah, he's a romantic comedy man for a while, and now he's just like, I don't give a fuck.
He got buried in a box for 90 minutes.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's a great movie.
In real life.
Yeah.
It wasn't even for the movie. Yes, but yeah. Anyway, Detective Pikachu. It's got its goofs. It's got its yucks, and like it's enough. It's fine. I wasn't particularly engaged with a whole lot of it, and I think I like totally recognize that is probably because I don't have that like deep Pokemon nostalgia, where like I couldn't name, you know, I recognized like 10 of the Pokemon maybe. I was like, oh, I know what that is, and like, oh yeah, that's that guy, and like, okay, so like I couldn't have that joy which I knew people were gonna have when he walks out of the train station into Rhyme City for the first time, and like you see like just that huge crowd with all the Pokemon walking around and flying across between the buildings and stuff. I was like, man, if I recognized all this shit, it'd be great, probably. So, like, I definitely understand it, but, you know, is a failing on my part or the movie's part? That's all it's got going, you know?
Right. I get that, and I will tell you, I had a really good time with Detective Pikachu. I really did. I had a blast with this movie. I think it's very clunky at first. The first act takes a little while to get going. I think a lot of the dialogue is really rough. And some of the performances are a little iffy, but once the mystery gets going, once Pikachu gets added into the mix, you're exploring more of the world and these different things they're introducing. I think the movie really settles into a very fun groove. And I think the great thing about it is that it does just kind of thrust you into that Pokemon world and expects you to keep up. You know, sometimes there are things where a character has to be like, this Pokemon can do this, because the story wouldn't make sense otherwise. Yeah. But like for the most part, they tell you about the world by showing it to you. Like Squirtles are helping out firefighters, and Machamp is directing traffic and all that stuff.
Around a Snorlax that's sleeping in the street.
Yes, which is pretty great.
Those.
That was wonderful.
But at the same time, I do get where you're coming from, Mike, where it's like if you're not already familiar with all these Pokemon, and I'm not familiar with all of them. Like I said, I think I know the original 150, right? The stuff that was there in Red and Blue in the original series of the show. And outside of that, I know a few that were in Johto or whatever, like the Gold and Silver games. but most of them have left my brain at this point. So, and then, past that, like, I know a couple of, like, big ones. I know, what the fuck's that? Greninja. I know that one because I think he was like a Smash Bros. Character at some point, maybe. Yeah. So that's why I know that Pokemon. And there's a couple of other ones like that I kind of just know out of context from the rest of the franchise. But like, I think for the most part, it does a pretty good job of just using them as a backdrop to the world. Like, you don't really need to like know a lot about them. Just be like, oh, look at all these wild creatures that are wandering around the street.
Yeah.
And I think the Pokemon themselves look great. Like, they look so good. And when we found out they were making this movie, I couldn't picture how the Pokemon that I knew were going to fit into a live-action world. You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't picture those cartoons being, in a live... And obviously they're CGI creations, but, like, the movie surrounding them is live-action, and they managed to make them look really cool by staying very close to their actual designs from the games and the show. And, considering how completely wrong they got Sonic the Hedgehog in the trailer for that movie which just came out, like, that seems like a pretty difficult task,
Yeah, it was amazing to watch that, have to see that trailer before seeing this.
Yes.
Just to see, like, how much they got that wrong.
Yeah, I can't believe they released that trailer in front of Detective Pikachu. Like, why even invite the comparison,
Yeah.
But yeah, and I do think, like I said, some of the dialogue, especially as they're setting things up, just kind of falls flat, feels awkward. But I think the performances are uniformly pretty good all around, and that helps sell a lot of those dialogues. Like, Ryan Reynolds doing a lot of fun, stuff with Pikachu, and I think Justice Smith is great in the lead role. Like, I really liked him. It really reminded me of Bob Hoskins and Roger Rabbit. It's a performance that sells the fact that he's interacting with real creatures, even though he's probably just actually talking to, like, a ball on a stick. Like,
it's definitely a tennis ball.
Like, there were parts of the movie where I was thinking to myself, like, I wonder what the behind-the-scenes of this scene looks like, Where it's just Justice Smith running around by himself, going like, what are you doing? And honestly, I want to see that version of the movie. If they could take out all Pokemon and just do that, that'd be great. Garfield without Garfield, but for that character. I will say I think it does rely on the viewer's affection for Pokemon in general, so if the franchise isn't something you've ever enjoyed in the past, it's probably not going to change your mind, which is what I think Mike was sort of getting at a little bit. But it honestly reminded me a little bit of Super Mario Bros. Too, the movie Super Mario Bros.
Yeah,
a lot of Bob Hoskins going on.
A lot of Bob Hoskins coming in today. But that's another movie that takes a video game, does something completely different and dark and off the wall with it. Like, that's so far removed from what the games actually are. The difference is, I think this one's pretty good. I think it does a pretty good job with it.
Wait, are you telling me that Mario is not a good movie? Is that what you're telling me right there?
Ooh, yeah. I will say I enjoy watching the Super Mario Bros. Movie. I own it on VHS, actually. But no, I wouldn't consider it a good movie.
All right.
Don't you have it on DVD?
Okay, that's like the one bad movie I don't own on DVD.
I felt like we had watched it before in college.
You probably got it through other means.
Other means.
Say no more.
Yes. And I will say, I think the story of this movie moves in some very unexpected directions. And some really, like, wild directions, too. Like, it kind of builds on Pokemon lore that I remember from when I was a kid. And then it introduces some insane ideas that make me go, like, huh, all right, so we're doing this now. And I'm not sure the actual ending of the movie totally landed for me, but I appreciated that it was trying to do something different and weird. How did you guys feel about the way the movie kind of progresses? Without getting into spoilers, obviously, because we're going to do that in a bit.
So, for me, having watched Pokemon the first movie, like, a week ago...
that's interesting.
The stuff that you probably found unexpected, I was like, yeah, no, that works here. Like, I was actually, like, ready for that to happen.
Really?
Yeah, because Pokemon the first movie is just like, I mean, Mewtwo on a rampage.
Okay, well, again, not getting into spoilers.
Well, yeah. Pokemon the first movie has a lot of very similar things going on that this one does.
Okay.
And I'll get into them in spoilers, but so as things progress, I was like, yeah, no, this checks all the boxes I was ready for.
All right, Mike, how about you? What did you think of the way the story kind of progressed over time?
I had no idea what to expect or what was going on, but like I found that just absolute like no. I don't know how to phrase it. That like no holds barred, like we're just gonna do it, and I was like, yes.
Right.
You always talk about loving movies that just like swing for the fence, and whether or not it lands, like whatever, you went for it and committed to the bit. So, like, yes, I appreciated that. And I just love the, like, slow escalation. Because it starts out, like, as a fairly grounded detective story, which is incredible that, like, that's even a thing that's happening in this Pokemon movie.
Right.
Like, trying to find a missing person or whatever. And then just the slow escalation to where it ends up in the climax was just like, wait, how did we get here again? Wait, hold on. And I had I had a blast at that. It was just like that craziness.
Cool. Yeah. All right. So I think we should move on to spoilers. We can actually get into some of the stuff that we're trying to talk about right now. But do you have any other final thoughts about Detective Pikachu before we move on to spoilers?
Release the R-rated cut.
Yeah.
Did you hear about that, Mike?
I don't think I actually like looked into it, but is it like Ryan Reynolds cursed a lot when he was doing the voicing or whatever? Okay,
yeah.
basically.
He made a lot of adult jokes, quote unquote.
Okay, yes. I saw something similar with John Mulaney doing Spider-Ham and Spider-Verse, actually.
Yeah.
There's like a behind the scenes of him doing that. But yeah, that makes sense. That totally tracks.
Yeah.
So yeah, just release a version with like Pikachu wearing a Deadpool mask and have just
let Pikachu say fuck. That's all I want.
All right. Collin, any last thoughts for spoilers?
I'm all set for spoilers.
All right, let's do it. Let's get the spoilers for Pokemon Detective Pikachu, starting right now.
Stop it, both of you! You're spoiling it! You're spoiling everything!
All right, spoilers for Pokemon Detective Pikachu, starting right now. So, yeah, Mewtwo, baby!
Classic.
Whoops.
Yeah, so the movie opens with Mewtwo, which I wasn't expecting. I knew he was in the movie because he popped up in one of the trailers at a certain point. But I figured it would be like a late-in-the-game reveal, like, oh, shit, Mewtwo's here, and he's causing mischief at the very end. Mike, did you know that Mewtwo was in the movie?
Yes, because of one of the trailers I saw.
Okay. Gotcha. I figured you might not have, because you try to be unsullied for most things. If you didn't know Mewtwo's in the movie, would that have changed anything for you? Like, would you have even had the context for?
I mean, I know who Mewtwo is, and since it's in the first scene, I would have been excited to be like, oh shit, like Mewtwo's showing up. But I mean, no, it wouldn't have really changed anything. Because I do remember that usually like he's the bad guy kind of thing in general,
right? Well, that is the thing. This movie positions him as the bad guy, and then he's the Pokemon that went nuts and kidnapped Tim's father and wiped Pikachu's memory. And by the way, Tim is a very boring name for a protagonist. I'm just throwing it out there.
You start with Ash, and you end up at Tim?
Exactly. But the twist is that Harry, Tim's father, was actually working with Mewtwo, and that Bill Nighy is the actual villain of the movie who has this insane plan to fuse everybody into their Pokemon. And it would be one thing if the movie just had him fuse with Mewtwo and then talk about doing it, but it doesn't actually happen. Like they went for it. They follow through. Like the gas gets released and everybody fuses with their Pokemon. And like I legit gasped when Ken Watanabe fused with Snubbull, and I was like, oh shit, are we doing this? And like it was like kind of some like body horror shit, like just wedged into this kid's movie.
Yeah.
Like imagine spending your life trapped in the body of a Psyduck, Mike.
No thanks.
Yeah. Just splitting headache all the time.
Forever.
So how did you guys react to that whole thing? And Collin, you're saying you kind of expected that, which seems insane.
So not so much like that we're fusing, like that we're going to fuse them together, but I was definitely expecting like Howard Clifford, Bill Nighy's character, to be the bad guy.
Oh yeah, I mean that
right.
kind of just seemed like he seemed like it was kind of the bad guy type for sure.
And so as soon as Mewtwo's part of it, so as I said, like I just watched Pokemon the first movie, where like Mewtwo's goal in that movie is actual just genocide.
Right?
Yeah, no, Mewtwo's like, I hate humans because humans created him and like just used him for experiments, and he's just like, I'm gonna kill all the humans. Like fuck this.
Wow.
Like we're going. Yeah. So it's like, so as soon as Mewtwo shows up, like they can't do that again, right? Like they can't. Like Mewtwo can't be your bad guy again.
Right.
So
I mean, he could.
Yeah. But I was like, I was definitely ready for Mewtwo to like have that twist and like actually be a helpful character. Versus,
okay, interesting.
Yeah. So I obviously didn't first see like fusing Pokemon and people together, but like I was ready for Mewtwo to like be like, hey, I'm not an asshole.
That said, they do lean hard into Mewtwo's hatred of humanity kind of thing.
Oh,
they
yeah.
say, like, humanity is destroying the world and that kind of thing. There's like a climate change joke at one point. They kind of lean hard into that. And that's another thing that I was kind of surprised this movie was going towards, like that, kind of made the argument that humankind is like inherently evil and that kind of thing, and that Mewtwo is the good guy at the end. So like his thought process must be sort of valid in some kind of way. But I love that. Like I talked about this on our Avengers episode actually when I talked about Age of Ultron. Like we need more existential blockbusters in our life. And I didn't expect Detective Pikachu to be one of those ones to scratch that itch, but it kind of did. It was kind of cool in that front.
I guess my reaction to the trailer was like sort of a premonition, just pure existential dread and like ego death.
Maybe you were Mewtwo this whole time, Mike.
Whoa, the Pokemon was the friends we made along the way.
They're the Pokemon we caught along the way, I think, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, fine, I guess.
But anyway, it kind of goes from there, and it leads into a big battle. Of course, all the fusing stuff gets undone. It's obviously they're not going to end the movie with
it's like a 28 days later situation.
God, I would have loved that.
That would be so good.
But yeah, they're not going to end the movie with the main female character trapped as a side-up for the rest of her life. So they gotta undo it. And then Mewtwo reveals that Pikachu is actually Tim's dad the whole time, and he unfuses the two of them. The movie ends with Tim hanging out with Pikachu and the real Ryan Reynolds. And I'm not sure that landed for me. Like I didn't hate it.
Yeah.
It just seemed like maybe one step too far. What I mean?
So my issue with that is, did Tim just not recognize his dad's voice the entire movie?
Well, it sounded like he hadn't seen him in a very long time.
Yeah,
right?
so,
years and years and years.
So his dad left when he was like 10-ish or so. And he's in his 20s, but I feel like you're still going to have some recollection of your dad's voice. I don't know. Like, Ryan Reynolds shows up, I'm like, wait, okay.
I knew it was going to be some kind of reveal because they don't show you
his face.
Dad.
Yeah.
Yes. Like a couple times. Where you almost see it, and then the image dissipates or whatever with the hologram stuff.
Yeah, when that was happening, I thought they were setting it up for a sequel, and they hadn't cast a big name actor yet for that role, so they were like, "We'll just obscure it," like they did with the Wasp in the first Ant-Man movie.
Yeah. But yeah, it turns out, and then Ryan Reynolds steps out of the crowd or whatever at the very end, and I was like, "Wait a second." When did you get so ruggedly handsome?
It'd be better if you just stepped out as Deadpool. That would be the best part.
Oh my God.
But I was also surprised because I at the end of this movie, I would have watched sequels about Tim and Detective Pikachu. I would have been on board for that. And now presumably they kind of cut out any chances of that happening. Theoretically that character, Tim could be in more movies or whatever, but that Pikachu is going to be a normal Pikachu now.
Right.
Unless they refuse his body at the end of it. But on the other hand, I think giving the story a definitive end is nice. We don't get enough of that in blockbusters anymore, so that's cool, but it just seems like for this movie, you had a very good concept, and you have something that could sustain several movies if you wanted it to, and you just kind of cut yourself off from that, at the end of this movie, which was an interesting choice.
Pokemon already has all the dollars. I think they're probably we don't need every other dollar.
But they're gonna if this is successful, which I think it did pretty well at the box office, and I'm sure it will do very well worldwide. There's got to be more Pokemon movies that they're going to make. I think this is going to be the back door to a whole cinematic universe of of Pokemon movies. So I would wager we would see that Ash Misty Brock movie in the near future. If this one is as good as if this one does as well as it should.
I want to see the movie where Ash actually beats the Pokemon League. That's what I want to see.
Where he makes it to the end. Does he ever?
No, he never does.
He never does?
No, so I want to see the movie where he actually completes it.
Doesn't he? Isn't it always Ash makes it really far, but then he just cares about Pokemon too much to win the Pokemon League? Isn't that usually how it goes?
Yeah, there's some emotional twist as to why he won't continue. But man, talking about commitment issues.
But yeah, so I thought the whole ending was a little iffy, but I think it basically worked. It felt like it was just a little too far for what it was doing. The movie had already swung very hard for the fences, like you said.
Yeah.
I was on board for a lot of that, but the ending being with Pikachu actually being Tim's dad, I'm not sure if that totally worked for me. But I did love, completely off topic from that, I loved what this movie did with Ditto.
I was just going to get into that, and man, I did not need to see a person with Ditto eyes.
Right?
I did not need that much.
a waking nightmare that was.
Body horror, straight up.
Yeah, just straight up body horror. But I love that they show him in the background of a scene like earlier in the movie. He's like the cameraman or something, and he transformed back into Ditto, and it's like, oh hey, it's Ditto. That was a fun little background gag. And then like afterwards, like you have this henchwoman who looks like she walked straight out of the games, like,
yeah,
like
the
just
red hair
straight up. Yeah, the sunglasses indoors and at night, and like
the rolled up suit jacket.
Exactly. Yeah. She looked like she was on Team Rocket or something, you know what I mean? But she looked like she walked straight out of the games, and then revealing that she was actually Ditto the whole time, and then having Ditto transform into like 20 different Pokemon in the final battle. Like, that was a blast. That was awesome.
Yeah, that was really cool.
And I think that kind of speaks to this movie's strength as a whole, is that it finds like really creative ways to use the Pokemon's powers and like kind of establish what this world would be like if you're living with these Pokemon and that kind of thing. So like, yeah, there would be those monkey Pokemon hanging out like on a tree outside the. That's after the original 150. I don't know where that Pokemon is.
That's Apom.
There's, those Apoms would be hanging out on a tree outside, hanging around like monkeys, or like, there would be an underground Pokemon battling stadium going on because battling is outlawed in Rhyme City. So like, there would be like a Gengar versus a Blastoise, and just seeing that happen, and like seeing Charizard fight Pikachu.
So the Gengar Blastoise thing was actually kind of cool. Because if you think back, if you remember like Red and Blue, the opening sequence when you start the game up is Blastoise versus Gengar.
Right, I forgot about that. That is awesome. Okay,
yeah.
That's cool.
Hashtag deep cut.
Man,
that's why I'm here.
And like those the like other Pokemons being the speakers.
those are Loudrins.
Yeah,
sure.
And like it makes sense that they would be the speakers at a club and shit. Like that was great.
Exactly. Which Diplo was the DJ there, by the way. The actual
Diplo.
Diplo, whatever. I think I've only seen written. Diplo is the DJ there. He's playing himself. So he exists in the world of Pokemon now. That's confirmed. That's canon.
Good for him.
But I also like this. There's like allusions to the outside world of Pokemon, right? They reference like Johto and Sinnoh and Kanto and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But it really takes its time to establish its own world. Like, it builds up its own society with Rhyme City. Because, again, it could have just leaned back on, like, hey, people remember Pallet Town, let's go there. But it didn't. They did, like, their whole new thing, and I thought that was pretty cool. But I think my favorite stretch of the movie is that underground Pokemon Stadium. Like, just the idea of that, like, underground Pokemon battling happening. Again, a relatively dark idea for a Pokemon movie.
Yeah, it's like that. I think it's is it Game Grumps? I forget. It has there's like an animated skit about like feeding Pokemon, making Pikachu kill the other Pokemon. He's like, yo, Pokemon don't kill each other, and Pikachu's like, but we do, you make us do it. It's like, oh yeah, like if you actually think about it and go that like next one logical step, of course there's underground Pokemon fighting.
Right, especially when it's outlawed in a city like Rhyme City. So yeah, that totally makes sense. But yeah, the fight with Blastoise and Gengar was pretty rad, and Charizard fighting Pikachu. And I liked pretty much all the big set pieces in this movie. The whole like kind of earthquake sequence where there's those giant turtle Pokemon that are moving the ground or whatever. Again,
that's Torterra.
Sure. Those Pokemon, like there's a whole earthquake thing, and like you see the Bulbasaurs kind of come by, and they bring Pikachu over to Mewtwo, and he heals him, and all that kind of stuff. Again, just a lot of fun. The whole thing where they're sneaking into the, they're sneaking into the place, and the Greninja's there, and they're fighting off the Greninjas and all that.
That was like Alien.
Cool. Yeah, it was very alien. It was alien-esque. Yeah. Also, the Mr. Mime interrogation, a highlight of the movie. I think
that was absolutely hilarious.
Which again ends with Tim threatening to pour gasoline all over Mr. Mime and burn him alive.
He did pour gasoline on him, and then
he dropped the match.
He did drop the match.
Right. So the shit's dark. The shit's dark in this movie, but the way that works. So if you just mime something to Mr. Mime, like he feels it. That's how that works. Like. Sure.
I don't know. So then he got burned alive.
And then he got burned alive.
I love the Magikarp gag in the underground fight scene.
Yes. Which, where he's like shouting, Magikarp, he's the worst one! Like echoing the thoughts of everybody who's ever played a Pokemon game.
Yeah.
And,
and then he turns into Gyarados.
That was pretty great.
Or whatever.
And then he turns into Gyarados, and it's pretty fucking rad. Charizard versus Gyarados. Like, again, just, again, as somebody who grew up watching Pokemon, I had issues with some of this movie. I think a lot of the dialogue is rough. I think some of the supporting performances are not great, but everybody's committed to the premise. Everything's committed to building this world, and as somebody who just enjoys watching Pokemon fight each other, this movie has a lot of that, is what I'm saying. What do you guys, as far as the supporting cast goes, I mean, Ken Watanabe, I can see being in this movie.
Oh, 100%.
Like, it makes sense that he's here, and he fully commits to it. He's like, "Oh, this is my stubble," and like that whole thing. It's great.
It's a grizzled detective.
Yes, and then Bill Nighy, of course, the villain, and like it's so weird that he's in this movie, but it's cool. Like I'm on board with Bill Nighy being in it. What'd you think of the girl, Catherine Newton, in the movie, the girl with the Psyduck? Because to me, she kind of came off as like there's a character on Comedy Bang Bang, the podcast, called Pokemon Trainer, or like I forget the character. I think the character's name is Dash Grab'em. And he's supposed to be like a Pokemon trainer, and he talks like, "I'm a Pokemon master, and I'm going to catch them all," and that's like his whole character, and that kind of felt like how she was playing her character to me in this movie. You know.
For me, it felt like she felt like someone straight out of the anime. Like,
right.
Yeah, they pulled someone straight out. It was like, here, just act like this, and I loved it. I thought, like, from like that first interaction he has with her, like in his dad's apartment building, where she's like I don't know, 100 miles an hour right off the bat. Like,
right.
I loved her. I thought her character was really fun. Yeah, she really captured just like that feel from the anime, which I felt just like that. I kind of tugged at my heartstrings, like kind of the nostalgia of the show.
Yeah, I had some fun with it. I definitely appreciated that nod to the cartoonishness, to the anime. Just like the character that is like big and loud and fast and goofy.
Right.
I'm surprised they didn't like put any of the anime like emotion, like the squiggly eyes or like the like cross on her forehead. Yeah, like I'm surprised they didn't do that. That would have been amazing, actually.
That would have been great. This movie strikes a pretty solid balance of like kind of presenting this sort of realistic world that is also obviously cartoony.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty cool. Also, I love Psyduck in this movie. Just throwing it out there. Psyduck's a blast.
I do want to shout out real quick, since we're talking about like Bill Nighy and stuff. There's a quote. I don't know if you guys saw it going around. Somebody asked him in an interview, like, who's your favorite Pokemon or something like that? And he has like this really like paragraph length, like heartfelt explanation about like his discovery of Pokemon. Like he had no idea what it was before this movie, and like
I did see that actually. Yeah.
It's amazing. And I think it was Mew or Mewtwo. I think is what he comes down on.
I think he says Mew actually. Yeah, because he's like the purest of the Pokemon or something like that, and like something like that.
He's just
I think he talks about how he bought a Pokedex and was like cataloging all the stuff, and then he gave it to like some young kid in Scotland or something.
Yeah, and he like bought the art that like one of the sculptures or something that's in the background of one of the sets and stuff. And it's like, what a fucking baller, Bill Nighy, late in life, discovering a new hobby. Good for him.
Love it.
Yes. So that's pretty great. Also, Karen Sony in this movie, in the opening scene. He's the guy who played Dopinder in the Deadpool movies.
Yeah.
That's one of those ones where I was watching him and I was like, I know that guy. Like, why do I know that guy? And then it like dawned on me like halfway through. I was like, oh yeah, Deadpool. But he has a pretty funny moment in the beginning with him and Justice Smith trying to catch a Cubone. And again, a very dark joke at that point. Where he says something like, "Hey, not everybody can wear your dead relative's skull, but you pull it off." So yeah, a lot of, and that kind of establishes the tone like right away for this movie. But yeah, anything else about Pokemon Detective Pikachu, guys? Any other thoughts you want to get out there?
So one thing that I had about it was weird that they had like, or at least for me, like they had Pokemon cards and stuff like that in this movie, and so like the Pokemon, like the outside Pokemon universe exists in it, but then also at one point you have Pikachu like walking up a road singing the Pokemon theme song.
Oh yes, right.
So it's like what exists in this universe? Like it's like the Pokemon anime has to exist here. Like why else would you be singing that song?
Well, it doesn't have to be the anime. It can be like because also when the before that, when you get to the news station, you're hearing like an instrumental version of the song as like the theme song for the news station.
Okay, I must have missed that. But it's just like he was saying, I'm like, wait, what the hell?
It's that thing like in Logan where the X-Men comics exist in Logan.
Yeah, right.
It's like, wait a second.
Or to talk about a superior show in Digimon.
Nobody ever.
The third season of Digimon actually takes place in quote unquote the real world, where Digimon is a franchise. So it's like there are Digimon cards that people deal with, and Digimon and like digital Digimon TV show that they watch. Like the first two seasons of the Digimon show are a TV show within the realm of the third season of the Digimon show.
It's like some... Oh, I can't think of it. Never mind.
And by the way, the third season of Digimon is the best season of Digimon. It's great. So it could be something like that. It could be like there is like a Pokemon anime within the realm of this because like Pokemon is just a popular thing. I feel like within the world of Pokemon, like nobody really does anything outside of be obsessed with Pokemon. You know what I mean?
That's fair.
Outside of Nurse Joy has her whole family has the hospital situation on lock that like nobody can get a doctor's job. And they only treat Pokemon, so like if you're human, you're fucked. And Officer Jenny, like again, her family has the police beat on lock across the entire region. And Professor Oak is the one scientist, and then that's it. That's it. Everybody else is just servants to the Pokemon. And then everybody else is a Pokemon trainer.
And then every other profession just doesn't do their job and instead of battling Pokemon.
Exactly. That's entirely what they do. Nobody grows food. Nobody, nobody, runs a government or anything like that. It's all everybody is just doing their Pokemon thing, and that's it. It's anarchy in the world of Pokemon. It's absolute chaos.
I'd watch that movie.
With people trying to people living their lives in the Pokemon world. You mean
just like a slice of life drama, like in the countryside.
Yeah, starring Ash's mom and Mr. Mime.
So the Pokemon movie I really want, and this is like a deep dive into Pokemon theory. So in the first Pokemon, in like Red and Blue, you don't meet like Ash's dad ever, and there's very few like paternal figures in the game. There's a theory that there's like a whole Pokemon war that happened prior to Red and Blue. That's the movie I want to see. I want to see the Pokemon War movie.
You want to see Knights of the Old Pokemon?
Yes.
Well, those are definitely some ideas to throw out there for whoever's making. This is Warner Bros. I think has put this one together, or I think they worked with Toho actually on this one. So yeah, whoever's making the next Pokemon movie, just keep it in mind. The War of the Pokemon, definitely an idea.
All quiet on the Poke front.
Saving Private Pikachu.
I'm in.
There it is. Saving Private Pikachu. In the meantime, I will diligently wait for my Inspector Agumon movie. All right, guys. Where can we find you online this week? I assume we're done. Unless you guys have more thoughts on Detective Pikachu. Okay, fine. Say final thoughts on Detective Pikachu, and then I'll wrap up.
Oh, man, I thought I had something. That'll happen to me a lot today.
Yes, it really has. Collin, go first. Any final thoughts?
Man, it wasn't great, but it was so much fun to watch. That's all I got on this.
All right. Okay, Mike.
It was a goofy time. If you have that deep Pokemon nostalgia, you'll enjoy it a lot more. Otherwise, whatever. It's Pokemon being real. That's fine, I guess.
Yeah,
it's cute.
Okay, that's. I really enjoyed Detective Pikachu. I think it's a lot of fun, especially if you are entrenched in Pokemon. If you're not entrenched in Pokemon, or you don't have that many fond memories of Pokemon, then maybe skip it. But I feel like you were probably going to skip it anyway if that was the case. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think anybody who doesn't like Pokemon is going to see this movie. Is kind of my thought process. But, yeah.
I remembered what I was going to say.
Okay.
It made me want to get one of the Pokemon games, so I guess it did its job as well.
Oh shit! There you go,
dude. Emulators are your best friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I am obviously not the best judge of this, but Red and Blue, man, all the way. That's the that's the shit.
Gold and Silver, you get a whole 18 badge experience. You get to play Kanto and Johto. It's perfect.
18 badges is too much.
It is. It's
Red and Blue.
Good.
Red and Blue are where all the good Pokemon are,
and you can still get them in Johto.
You can get some of them, right? But it's it's not all of them. Yeah. It's not all 150. Is it? I don't even know. It's gonna be one of the all these games make it so you can, every game you can't get 3 or 4 Pokemon that are only available in the other game.
So you had to buy that, and back in the day you had to buy a link cable. Man, this was just it was a money making machine.
Oh my god, it was insane. But anyway, yeah. So that is Pokemon Detective Pikachu. And who knows, maybe this will convert Mike into a big Pokemon geek, or it'll inspire you to go watch Digimon instead.
Only time will tell.
Just throwing it out there. But yeah, all right. Collin, where can we find you online this week?
You can find me at SchmedLab9 on Twitter if you are interested in hearing me complain about baseball or Magic the Gathering.
And how do you spell Schmedlap? Just so people are aware.
SHMEDLAP, and then there's the number 9.
Okay, Schmedlap9 on Twitter. All right, and Collin, thank you again for joining us. By the way,
Absolutely.
It's a lot of fun. Lending your poke expertise.
Absolutely, I
to
had
our
a
first
blast.
episode.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And Mike, where can we find you online this week?
You can find me at MD Filmblog on Twitter.
And you can find me at msmithfilmblog on Twitter, and all of our podcasts will be available on rapture.press. We don't know exactly when that's going up yet, but it will be up pretty soon. Thank you for listening to Mike and Mike Go to the Movies. I'm Mike Smith, that's Mike DeCriscio, and that is Collin Stiles. Don't forget to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts or any other podcast app, and if you want to contact us, hit us up, Mike and Mike Go to the Movies at gmail.com. Our next episode of Mike and Mike will actually be a double episode. I confirmed this with Mike while we were recording this episode during a break, so but I had the copy already written because I assumed you'd say yes.
You know me so well.
Exactly. So it's going to be a double episode, our next episode. Mike and I will talk the adrenaline rush we are sure to get from John Wick Chapter 3, which we're both very excited about. I'll be seeing it Thursday night. Just rewatched John Wick 1 and 2 this past weekend, actually. And since the final episode of Game of Thrones will have aired by then, we figure we'll use the back half of the episode to talk about Game of Thrones. Just the finale, the final season, the show as a whole, see how it all wrapped up. At this point, 5 of these 6 episodes have aired, and I am somebody who has mostly enjoyed it with some reservations. Mike, what is your take on the season overall so far?
I had enjoyed the first 2 episodes. I was okay on the third. I'm over it now. I'm like, whatever.
You're done?
I'm done.
2 episodes was all it took. You're out of the show.
Yes, episode 5 and ruined it for me. Like the second to last episode, you were so close. And now I don't give a shit anymore. I read the leaks. I read the leaks already. Like, whatever.
Oh, damn.
You're reading the leaks. Come on, man. Don't do that. That's
it was by accident, but I didn't care when it happened, which is how I know I was done.
Okay, but you're going to watch the final
episode. Yeah, I'm going to watch it. But
yeah, okay. It would be so lame to get to the finish line.
The last episode?
I'd just be like, nah. Anyway, I'm still excited for it, and again, I've mostly enjoyed this season with some reservations, so we'll. I think it'll be a spirited discussion when we get to it next week, or in 2 weeks from now. Plus, you can keep an eye out for the next Complete Works, where we will see Nicolas Cage reunited with filmmaker Oliver Stone for Snowden, a biopic about Edward Snowden that starred Joseph Gordon-Levitt in the lead role, which is a movie that everyone forgot about as soon as it came out. So, yeah, looking forward to that. And that's the end of this week's episode of Mike and Mike Go to the Movies. Until next time, true believers.
Mike and Mike go to the movies. Mike and Mike go to the movies. Yeah!
You have chosen wisely.
Alright, so is the title supposed to be Pokemon Detective? Like, that is his title?
The title is Pokemon Detective Pikachu, which is the 3 words. There's no colon, there's no dash, there's nothing.
Oh, man.
But I think it's Pokemon Detective Pikachu.
But if there's no colon after Pokemon, it could just be like Pokemon Detective Pikachu. Like, he works with Detective Goodman, and then Pokemon Detective Pikachu.
Like, he's the Pokemon Detective.
Yeah.
I want the Pokemon Detective cinematic universe. It's just different Pokemon. It'd be amazing.
I like it.